Welcome to our second Emmy Contenders chat of 2019. Today in the studio, we have the two-time Emmy nominee. I'm sorry, Tony nominee.
Tony nominee.
Let me get that right. Tony nominee.
You're getting ahead of. I like where you're going.
Yeah, you're going to get two Emmy nominations for this.
Just at some point.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes. He is the star of Showtime's Black Monday and now a published author, Andrew Rannells.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be your second interview.
Well, first in our hearts.
All right. Thank you very much.
We're going to talk mostly about Black Monday.
Yes, please.
Which is, I think the scientific term for it is rude. It's a very
rude,
very
politically
politically incorrect show.
Yes, well, it takes place in 1980s New York, centering around the stock market and this sort of ragtag group of traders who are the number 11th trading firm on Wall Street. So they're not really at the top of their game there, but they're trying. They're trying to wedge their way into the top there. So. They're ruthless, certainly. I would say that, but maybe they just don't know any better. How about that?
Well, they're pretty unchecked.
They're very unchecked. It was a very unchecked time. It was a very unchecked time.
Yeah. It's certainly a snapshot of a time with different standards, if any.
Yes, very much so. Very much so.
I would imagine that all of the language in it and the coke use and everything else they do is sort of like a comedy ipecac.
Sure, perhaps. Just vomiting up comedy. Yes, right. Absolutely.
So was that one of the appeals to you of being in it, or?
You know what? I was really excited by it because it was such a strange and cool and unexpected combination of genres and tones. So it is a very sort of broad comedy, as I said, that takes place in the 80s, and we do have all of that. We have there are big set pieces, big jokes, but then there's also this sort of this crime, this perhaps it's a murder or it's an accident, we don't know. At the beginning of the first episode, we see a body fall off a building, smash onto a car. We don't know who it is, and we're sort of tracking that along the way to sort of piece together who that might be. There's also the lead up to the 1987 stock market crash, so we're following that. And then another layer of it is this very sort of human story between Don Cheadle's character, Regina Hall's character, and mine, and Paul Scheer's character, all sort of figuring out what their place is in this world and how they actually want to live in it in order to be successful and also attempt to be decent human beings. So it was unlike anything I had read, and I thought it was going to be a really fun, and it was a really fun challenge to sort of play all those different parts of it and cross all those different lines and yet tell this very cohesive story.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a puzzle in pieces.
It very much so, yeah.
And they throw us plenty of curveballs. The tie pin that identifies whoever dies.
I know. I thought it was. I was really blown away at the script that that David and Jordan wrote. That it was just that pilot script was. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what the story was going to be, and on top of being very funny. So I just thought it was. I was pulled in right away.
It was really funny. I mean,
oh, good.
Especially in that pilot with just that burst of language and all of the epithets about everything.
Well, and no one is safe. Everyone gets hit a little bit. So, yeah.
Was there anything, a scene or a sequence that the people on set had trouble doing, maybe because it was so rude or they couldn't get through it because it was funny?
Well, I mean, we always had that trouble. We always had trouble keeping it pulled together. I mean, I think that Don was he was a great sort of monitor of sort of like how far was too far. I think that I don't know what this says about me, but I was like, I'll try it. I was real happy to, I was like, let's see how this feels. Don had a better eye on maybe that's too far. Maybe we've gone too far here. And we could always tell at the table reads too, because we would do these table reads every week. If we got groans or like too many gasps, it was like, okay, let's make a little check by that line and just make sure we revisit that one.
Blair, your character.
Me, I'm Blair.
Is he from Nebraska?
He's not from Nebraska. He is from the Midwest, though, so not unlike me.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So there are some parallels there.
A little bit. You know, he reminded me a lot of, and I haven't gotten to play a character quite like this since the Book of Mormon, where he is, and Blair reminded me a lot of Elder Price. He's this guy who has a lot of sort of book smarts and theoretical knowledge about something. With the Book of Mormon, obviously, it was being a missionary and Mormonism. This was all this sort of, what Blair had learned at Wharton about trading and Wall Street, but he had no practical experience. There was nothing, he didn't have any real world experience to sort of fall back on. So he learns very quickly that everything that he thinks in theory is going to work, it doesn't backfire exactly, but it's just not quite as smooth as he thinks it's going to be. And there's not quite the margin of error that he had sort of hoped there would be. And I was really excited, sort of recognizing Blair in Elder Price, because I loved doing that show. I loved being part of that and playing that character. And I haven't really gotten to do anything close to that since then. So he gets a perhaps one of the biggest sort of turns of any of our characters in Black Monday. I think Blair's transformation over the season is maybe the most drastic, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
He really goes from being this innocent to being kind of a creep. Kind of a creep.
Yeah. Your guys' version of Gordon Gekko. That's actually one of the It's one of the funny strains in the show that in that universe, your shop actually is one of the inspirations for Wall Street.
Yes. We do have an episode where a writer is sort of following Don's character around to see if there's anything to be mined there for this movie. Of course, they do not take any of it, but yeah.
But that's a really interesting parallel you draw between Blair and Elder Price, because I've been thinking of you, especially because of because of the book that.
Oh, thank you. That's nice placement. I like that.
Which has to do with your early days and rise in the New York theater scene until you get to Broadway.
Yeah.
So I thought that there might be more of that material that you could draw from to make Blair a person, but what you say about Elder Price really makes sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it does. I mean, that that also applies to me too. I mean, I was 19 when I moved to New York, and I think I did have I thought I had an understanding of how things were going to work, and that if I really focused and worked hard and checked certain boxes, that I would get to where I wanted to go a little faster. The reality was it took me about 7 years to get my first Broadway show, which was Hairspray, and then it would be another 6.5 years before I got the Book of Mormon. So it was, it was a steady climb, but it was a slow one. And that's always, I think a lot of times, my existence is sort of known, or my bio always starts with the Book of Mormon, but I was 32 when that happened. So there was a lot of life that happened before any of that. So that's the majority of or all of the stories that are in that book are really from my childhood up until that first night that I had in Hairspray.
When I hear you say it's a slow climb, I don't know, there are probably a lot of actors out there saying, that's faster than I got.
Well, I mean, 14 years to get to the Book of Mormon is not that's not exactly overnight success.
No.
That's not,
No.
I mean, considering that when I moved to New York, and I tell a story in the book that I had my first Broadway audition for Rent less than a month after I moved here. So in my mind, I was like, oh, it's all working. Like, everything's working.
Right.
This is exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I did not get Rent, and it took me a long time to get, even close to being on Broadway. And it doesn't always work out the way that you think it's going to. And hard work it counts for a lot, but there's also timing and luck, and there's a lot that factors into it. And I think that also plays into sort of Blair's. I mean, hopefully I didn't become evil in the process of trying to get some success. But Blair definitely, he makes a very distinct decision that he's gonna cross a lot of lines and make his morality as flexible as possible to get where he's going.
Well, I think especially in that universe where everyone's morality is awfully flexible.
Are you talking about acting?
I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you're talking about.
We're a solid group of people. We're very trustworthy.
In the world of Black Monday, where people's...
Yes, Wall Street.
Yeah.
Those crooks.
Why do you... Wall Street acting, everybody is staying
everybody's
there.
out for themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In that world, I don't know that you're out of line with the rest of the characters. So I don't know if evil or good really applies.
Well, that's
in
the
that
thing, is that if you're playing somebody like that, like people always like, oh, he's turning into a bad guy. And I was like, well, he's not turning into I didn't think he was turning into a bad guy. I think he was just, he was making some choices that maybe he will regret later. But, as an actor, you can't obviously see somebody as being, this is a bad person, this is a good person. Like, you do have to sort of live within their reasoning and justify however they're making these decisions, so that there isn't any judgment. I mean, you can't honestly play someone actively judging themselves and being like, well, this is a bad decision.
Well, unless you're Don John, I guess.
I'm sorry?
Don John,
Yeah.
who walks on and says, I'm a villain. So.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I couldn't do that for Blair.
Yeah.
I had to be a little more sensitive to poor Blair.
As you say, he has a real transformation. I mean, he goes through many different steps before he gets to where we find him at the end of the first season.
Absolutely.
You're a producer on this.
I am.
So were you a real hands-on producer, or were you just learning as you went?
I mean, Don Cheadle was a great great resource of just like watching him of how he sort of weighed in and when he weighed in. But I would say that working on Girls for 6 seasons was also very helpful, just to see sort of watching Lena run that show was a huge education to me. So I feel like, first of all, I'm very grateful to be a producer on this, and I also feel like I knew where maybe my opinion was needed or valued most, and didn't try to overstep into anything that wasn't really my territory. So certainly things
what did you
about
feel like that territory was?
Well, I mean, certainly certainly things about story and about arc and about those are all things that I think that you can confidently sort of weigh in. I certainly was not making any suggestions to the transportation department about how to make things go more smoothly. That's not my area. But I did. It was great to have. I mean, and I've been lucky that most of the things that I've worked on have been extremely collaborative. It was lovely to be able to actually get that credit. Was very nice. That's nice to see.
I'm sure Don Cheadle ran the transportation question.
He was in charge of Transpo. I was in charge of craft service and catering.
Naturally, of course.
Yeah, I took over the catering duties.
Okay, so this question is sort of producery and actory.
Oh, God.
You had different writers for every episode.
We did. We had a fantastic writer's room. Yes. Yes.
So why that choice to make? I mean, I assume that
rather than just David and Jordan writing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think some of it is just a practicality issue, I guess. I mean, I can't really speak for them, but in my experience with working on shows like this, you have your writer's room. They all get together months before you start production. They break the season. They sort of divvy up which episodes people are going to get, and then everybody goes off and writes their episode, and they come back, and then David and Jordan were always the ones who did sort of the final polish on all of that. But I think just in terms of, and they were always on set with us, for the entire, for the entire day until we wrapped, they were always there to sort of, tweak or punch up or massage things that weren't working or that needed to be streamlined or but I think just in the interest of time and sort of delegating creativity, I guess, that seems to be a system that works fairly well.
Well, I ask because what you're talking about is sort of standard operating practice for television, but and in 10 episodes there are 16 writers and seven directors? Yeah, 7 different directors. And I just wondered if that were a choice to get some variety, or if those are voices.
I mean, I think that's a lot to do with it too, and I think that any show in its first season that's sort of creating tone and figuring out sort of what story we're telling. It's an odd task to make a pilot and then months later come back and make this series and. Sometimes, the crew has changed. You might have some new people. You have a different, now this script is written by someone else. It does take a second to sort of figure out what's what and what story are we telling and what is the tone and where is our line and who are these people. I mean, that's, coming from the theater where you're doing a show every night that only deals with the same set of circumstances in this person's life 8 times a week. Right. You get really comfortable with telling that same story and you find the nuance and the comedy and the drama and all in that set of circumstances. But with a television show, we're going week to week, figuring out like, well, now who are they right now and who are they in this moment? And that is still something that I find really fascinating and challenging, that you are developing these people as you're going along, and you always have a new story to tell, and there's always something sort of new to find about this person. And I love the challenge of that working on television, because it's not just one story. You're dealing with several stories. Speaking
of several stories, I mean the different people who are the heads of those stories, shall we say. Was there anyone in the cast who blew you away with what they did? Cheadle's kind of an obvious pick.
Don Cheadle. Don Cheadle, of course, and I was very excited to work with him. Regina Hall was someone I had always been a fan of, but had never met or worked with. And then within seconds of meeting her, I was completely in love with her. And it took us a while for our characters to really interact. The first few episodes, obviously we were there together, but didn't have a ton to do together. And then the storylines really sort of start to intertwine. And she's amazing. She's hilarious. And the thing that I find, she just has this unwavering energy and positivity to her, whether it's at 4 a.m. in a makeup trailer or it's at 3 a.m. when we're wrapping. Like, she really stays in it and on it, and really brings everybody up. Even when everybody else is sort of dragging a little bit, Regina shows up and she keeps it going, and you just want to rise to her level. She's incredible.
Certainly a great role for her. She gets to do so many different things.
Yeah.
Person I would nominate for what I was just asking you, those Ken Marino.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He plays the twins. He plays the Lehman brothers.
He plays the Lehman brothers, and he plays his own twin, and brilliant. I mean, I didn't have any scenes with him, but watching him do it, I went to set several times just to watch him work, and it was really fascinating.
Yeah. That's a great part for him. I thought
oh my God, he's amazing.
Before we move on, I have to ask you a question from a fan.
Oh, geez. Is it my mother?
If your mother goes by the name LJ.
She might.
Well, Mrs. Rannells,
let's see if
AKA LJ.
Let's see if this is Charlotte.
The question is, do you have any plans to put out a solo album? And if so, would it be songs you wrote or covers?
Well, I don't write songs, so they would have to be covers. And no, I do not. I mean, I love performing, and I got to do a concert last year that was filmed for PBS, which I was really thrilled by, for Live at Lincoln Center. But no, I haven't really. Most of my singing has all been done in the context of a musical. So branching out as like a sort of a solo artist is not something I necessarily have my eye on. I would love to do another musical, but yeah, just like rocking out the hits by myself. I don't know.
I could see you doing a solo album, though. I could see
really?
it somewhere down the line.
What would be on it?
What would be your songs? Oh, well, you have to tell me. I mean, what?
Well, no, you've got the idea.
Oh, okay. You'd obviously be doing Best of Bruce Springsteen.
Yes, I would. Yes, I would.
Well, he did the album Nebraska, so.
He did. Well, I don't know if you're leading me here, but when I was in New York and just starting to audition for musicals, and actually well into my career, I would sing Born to Run for just about every audition, whether it was correct or not.
So why Born to Run?
I just love that song. It's a great song.
Just so energetic?
Well, I mean, and it's about trying to get out of your town, right? It's about, I've always loved that song because I was a kid trying to get out of my town.
Right.
Yeah, so I love that. I love that song.
So now we know it will be a Springsteen album.
It's all Springsteen. That's what we need. And that's what we need. Andrew Rannells sings Springsteen. People, I hear tens of people lining up to buy that album.
All right, so we have proof here that
I wrote a book.
An author.
Yep. I did it.
Now you're the very ripe old age of 40 now?
40.
And the book, I think, ends when you're around 26?
26, that's correct.
Everybody has stories in their lives that I think would make for interesting book fodder, but not everyone's a raconteur. Not everyone can actually
tell the stories.
Yeah.
Sure.
How did you know you could?
I still don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I started writing essays. I'd always written essays for myself. Would never really with an eye on sharing them with anybody. And then my friend Bill Clegg, who's a literary agent and also a really very talented writer himself, he asked to see some of them. I told him that I did. He was like, "Do you ever write?" And I said, "I do write, actually, but not really for public consumption." But I shared with him some of these essays, and we sort of passed them back and forth, and he gave me, some notes or some feedback, and we did that with a few of them, and then he submitted one to Dan Jones at the New York Times for Modern Love, and they published it, much to my delight and surprise. And there was some interest then from some publishing houses, like, did I have anything else written? And here Bill had tricked me into sort of polishing all of these essays. So I had an actual proposal, although I didn't really realize that's what it was. But there they were. So that's how it all sort of came about.
A fair description of the book would be it's you growing up in Omaha, and then making the decision to leap all the way to New York, and then the years of struggle before.
That's it.
Before Hairspray.
Before Hairspray.
And then the struggle was over.
No, the struggle continued. Hairspray was not the magic bullet I thought it was going to be. No.
You were a replacement in Hairspray, is that right?
I was a replacement. I was first in the ensemble. I played the pivotal role of Fender. He wore glasses. And then I understudied 3 parts, Link Larkin, Corny Collins, and something they called the male authority figure, which was sort of this like character actor who at the time was being played by Jim J. Bullock. And I was like, well, I'll never probably go on for that, because everyone was like, well, he never misses. And then I ended up going on a lot, which was my friend Julie Halston, who was in the show, would always look at me when I would go on. She'd be like, this is the saddest night on Broadway. Because it did look like a high school play, because I had like a gray wig on and like lines drawn on my face. And I was like, I can't believe people are paying for this. But here we are.
You must have pictures of that.
It's happening. I don't know if I do. I think that people kept, especially as I was putting together this book, and my editor would ask me, like, "But do you have any photos from this time?" And I did have some, but even though it was not that long ago, we didn't all have cameras on our cell phones,
right.
So it wasn't the constant documentation of like everything that's going on. Like, we didn't do that, or we were too drunk to. I don't know, but I don't have a ton of photos.
Actors don't drink a lot or anything. Actors are very...
They do on Broadway.
Except on Broadway.
Especially musicals. Especially musicals, yes.
So have there been any responses to your book that have been particularly meaningful to you?
No.
No. Who cares?
No. No, my family has been, they've obviously, well, not obviously, but they've been very supportive of it. I just finished doing this book tour where I went to 6 cities and I got to meet a lot of folks. And I was very, very moved by especially the young people who read it and who are maybe about to either leave college or start college, or people who are, just sort of starting out. And my hope is that this is it's not a book that's just sort of showbiz centric. I think hopefully it's stories more about becoming an adult and figuring out what that means, and if just anybody who is leaving home and finds themselves sort of with this dream but not sure how to make it come true. And it's ambition is great, but it can also be very lonely, and I think that's not something that I was certainly not prepared for, and I don't know if a lot of people sort of realize that it's great to sort of chase after what it is you want, but there's a lot of time, it's a lot of days where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing or why I'm doing this or should I be doing this, and so that's what I sort of wanted to focus on. So it was encouraging for me to hear that even folks who are not actors could read this and say like, oh, I relate to that feeling.
Which reminds me, we haven't actually said the name of your book.
Oh, it's called Too Much Is Not Enough, which some of you may know is a lyric from the song Fame.
Okay.
Fame. Treasure Lee Coco.
You're going to live forever.
Keep your top on.
That was...
Keep your top on.
Keep your top on. I was going to ignore that advice, but he told me, so I will.
Or at least get the money up front.
I'm now going to hit you with the lightning round question.
Oh, brother.
I know. You got to brace yourself, get ready.
Okay. Now, is there a running theme or topic I should be aware of?
Sort of, but not really. It's still TV related.
Okay. I like this. I was raised on television.
There are correct answers. What was the last show you binge watched? And you could parse this as either the last show you binged because you couldn't stop watching it, or like, I've watched this much, I better finish it.
No, I binge watched it because I loved it. It was Shrill, starring Adie Bryant. I loved it.
Adie Bryant.
Adie Bryant. I wish I could binge. Yeah, that show is incredible. It's so well written and beautifully. Adie is so beautiful on it, and Jesse Peretz, I think, did a beautiful job directing episodes. And I wish I could binge The Act, but it's really, they're making it hard for us. They're just week to week. I'm getting very impatient. So good, Patricia Arquette. Jesus.
Oh yeah, and it's wonderfully directed. If I might say.
Yes.
Okay, what classic show do you wish you could have been on? And I'm going to guess Knots Landing and Miami Vice are candidates.
Yeah, they're definitely candidates. How far back can we go here? Or
As far back as you want to go.
Or as recent? I wish I could have been on 30 Rock, I'll be honest.
Who wouldn't want to be on 30 Rock?
Yeah. Or Cheers. I really like that I'm taking the lightning out of your lightning round.
No.
Just making this, it's like a rolling thunder. Rolling thunder round.
But if you were on Cheers, who would you be? What?
Diane's brother. I would be Shelley Long's brother.
There you go.
Who just hangs out at the bar.
I could totally see that
Right?
casting.
I think so too.
What was your first acting job, and what would Andrew today say to Andrew then?
My first acting job, what I considered to be sort of like, I did some children's theater, but like the first one that I really felt like, oh, this is like it was a professional job, was a dinner theater production of On Golden Pond. I played Billy, I believe, what was his name? McKeon. Played it in the movie. But I played Billy, and yeah, but it was a big deal for me. I was 13, and I was working with, I was the only kid in the show, and yeah, it was a big deal.
I think I might have been in that too. I might have played.
Were you in On Golden Pond?
Yeah, I may have.
You just making this up?
No. It was so long ago that I may have actually done that, because I remember being the only kid in the show with people with old age makeup on.
Yeah. Well, I did it with real old people. We kept it classy in Omaha.
You're more authentic.
Yeah.
What was your worst job ever? Not necessarily an acting job, and I know you've mentioned before being a greeter at the Warner Brothers store.
Yes, I can probably top that one. I did coat check at a restaurant called Chez Josephine in Times Square. It's still open, and it's a lovely restaurant. But I was just a really terrible coat check person. But I did manage to do that job for maybe like 2 months until it just became overwhelming. Like I would lose things. Like one night the bar collapsed, so all the coats were on the floor, and I was like, I don't know. Like I remember letting a man come in and just be like, "Best of luck, sir. Keep your dollar, but like good luck. Good luck finding your coat. I can't help you."
He walked out with 3 women's coats.
Probably, but I was like, I don't know what to do here, and I would just like panic.
Okay, the last one.
Oh God.
The last one is phrased as Soprano prequel or Breaking Bad sequel, but I wonder if maybe you might make that a crossover question. If there's a crossover of TV shows you'd like to see, like Breaking Bad and Glee, or Sopranos and Golden Girls.
What?
Sopranos and Golden Girls.
Sopranos and Golden Girls. That would work for me. I feel like Sex and the City and Oz. Is there a way where they all go to jail?
Yeah.
I know that's kind of Orange is the New Black territory, but I feel like we could get there.
Yeah. For the third
there's,
movie.
There's something different there. You get Chris Maloney in there. It's a whole different sitch.
That is going to get greenlit.
It just did. My phone just vibrated.
All right.
Greenblatt just texted me, and he was like, "We're doing it. We're on it."
All your answers were correct.
Yay!
You win.
I did it.
I don't know what you win.
Do I win this book?
You win this book.
I win this book. Oh, it's about me. What actor doesn't love to read about themselves?
Again, I don't know what you're talking about. All right. Thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. So nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
And everyone watch Black Monday.
Black Monday. I'm keeping these orchids.